I want to tell you a story I've never told publicly before. I've thought about telling it many times. I've started and stopped. Because this story isn't just about what I saw. It's about what happens when you see something terrible coming and the person you're trying to warn doesn't want to hear it. And it's about the moment I realized that being psychic isn't a gift. It's a weight. And some days that weight is almost too heavy to carry. My name is Celine. I'm 50 years old. I've been reading energy for over 20 years. I've done readings for over 8,000 people. Most of those readings are about love. Almost always about love. People come to me wanting to know if their partner is faithful, if their ex still thinks about them, if the person they can't stop dreaming about is their soulmate. Love is the reason 90% of my clients walk through my door. But this story isn't about someone who came to me. This is about someone I read without meaning to. A complete stranger. A woman I'd never met before and have never seen since. And I saw her marriage ending 6 months before it did. It was a Saturday afternoon in October, about 4 years ago. I was in a coffee shop in Sedona, not working, not reading anyone, just sitting with a cup of tea and a book, trying to have a normal afternoon like a normal person. That's something people don't understand about what I do. I don't walk around reading everyone I see. I can usually keep it quiet. I can usually tune it out the way you tune out background noise at a restaurant. You hear it, but you don't listen. That's how I survive in public. I hear the energy, but I don't listen to it. But sometimes the energy is so loud that I can't ignore it. Sometimes it screams. And that Saturday afternoon, it screamed. A couple walked in. They looked like they were in their early 40s, well-dressed, attractive, the kind of couple you'd look at and think they have it all figured out. He was tall, dark hair, confident walk, the kind of man who's used to being in charge of a room. She was pretty, put together, smiling. They ordered their drinks, sat down at a table about 10 feet from me, and started talking. From the outside, everything looked fine. They were laughing. He touched her arm. She leaned toward him. If you were watching them with your eyes, you'd see a happy couple on a Saturday afternoon. But I wasn't watching with my eyes. The second they walked through the door, I felt something hit me in the chest, like a cold hand pressing flat against my sternum. The energy between them was wrong. Not just off, wrong. It was the energetic equivalent of two magnets being forced together on the same pole. They were close physically, but energetically they were pushing each other away with everything they had. And neither of them knew it. Or maybe one of them did. I couldn't tell yet. I tried to go back to my book. I really did. I told myself it wasn't my business. I told myself I was off the clock. I told myself that not every feeling I get is an invitation to act on it. But the energy kept pushing into me. It was like trying to read a book while someone is yelling in the next room. You can try to concentrate, but eventually you have to acknowledge the noise. So I looked at them, really looked, and I let myself listen. The first thing I felt was him. His energy was fractured. That's the only word I have for it. It wasn't dark, it wasn't angry, It wasn't malicious. It was split, like a man standing in two rooms at once with a wall between them. One room was that coffee shop, that table, that woman across from him. The other room was somewhere else entirely, someone else entirely. He was physically present with his wife, but energetically he was already gone. Half of him had left that marriage months ago, maybe longer. He just hadn't told anyone yet. He might not have even told himself yet. But his energy knew. Energy always knows before the person does. The second thing I felt was her. And this is the part that made my stomach turn. She knew. Not consciously, not the way you know a fact or a piece of information. She knew the way your body knows when a storm is coming before the sky changes. She could feel him pulling away. She could feel the distance growing. She could feel that when he laughed at her jokes now, there was a half-second delay that wasn't there before. She could feel that his hand on her arm wasn't the same hand that used to pull her close in bed. It was a performance hand, a going through the motions hand. She felt all of this, and she was doing what millions of women do when they feel it. She was ignoring it. She was smiling harder, laughing louder, leaning in closer, trying to close a gap that was opening faster than she could reach across it. She was working so hard to hold that marriage together, and she didn't even know she was doing it. It was all happening below the surface, all happening in the energy. And the energy doesn't lie. I sat there for about 15 minutes watching this, watching a marriage end in slow motion while both people smiled and drank their lattes. It was one of the most painful things I've ever witnessed, and I've witnessed a lot of pain in 20 years of doing this work. Now here's where it gets complicated, because I knew what was going to happen, not in some vague, something bad is coming way. I could see the shape of it. Within 6 months, he was going to leave. There was someone else already. Not necessarily a full affair, maybe just an emotional connection, a coworker, someone he'd started confiding in instead of confiding in his wife. But it was enough. It had already tipped past the point of return. The decision had been made in his energy, even if his brain hadn't caught up yet. I could feel the timeline. 6 months, maybe less. By spring, this woman sitting 10 feet from me was going to have her life pulled apart at the seams, and I had to decide what to do with that information. This is the part of my work that nobody talks about. The part that keeps me up at night. The part that has made me sit alone in my car in a parking lot and cry more times than I can count. Because what do you do? What do you do when you're sitting in a coffee shop and you can see a stranger's future collapsing and she has no idea? Do you walk up to a woman you've never met and say, "Excuse me, I'm a psychic, and I can feel that your husband is leaving you in 6 months"? Do you hand her a card? Do you write something on a napkin? Do you just look at her with sad eyes and hope she picks up on it? Every option sounds insane. Every option makes you the crazy woman in the coffee shop who ruins a stranger's Saturday. I've learned over 20 years that people don't want the truth when they haven't asked for it. The truth is only useful when someone is ready to hear it, and this woman was not ready. She was in the opposite of ready. She was in the middle of actively not knowing, and that not knowing was the only thing keeping her functional. So I did nothing. I finished my tea. I picked up my book. I left. I walked to my car and sat there for about 20 minutes, feeling sick. Because I knew what was coming for her, and I couldn't stop it. 6 months later, almost to the day, I was back in that same coffee shop, and she was there, alone. Same table, different woman. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 6 months. The light behind her eyes was gone. She was thinner, paler, holding her coffee with both hands like it was the only warm thing left in her life. She wasn't reading, wasn't scrolling her phone, wasn't doing anything. She was just sitting there, the way people sit when they've been hit by something so hard that standing up feels like too much work. I knew immediately. It had happened. He was gone. The spring timeline I'd felt 6 months earlier had played out exactly as I'd seen it, and she was sitting in the wreckage. I almost left. I almost walked right back out the door. Because what was I going to say? I told you so? I knew this was coming? That helps nothing. That changes nothing. That just makes her feel worse, and makes me feel like a vulture circling someone's pain. But something pulled me toward her. Not a thought, not a decision, a pull. The same way a thread pulls when two energies are supposed to connect. I've learned to trust that pull. It's never wrong. I bought 2 cups of tea. I walked over to her table. I said, I don't know you, and this is going to sound strange, but I think you could use some company. Can I sit down? She looked at me for a long time, and then she nodded. We talked for 2 hours. I didn't tell her I was psychic. I didn't tell her what I'd seen 6 months earlier. I didn't tell her anything about energy or readings or any of that. I just listened to her, because that's what she needed. Not a psychic, not a reading, not someone to tell her what she already knew. She needed a stranger to sit across from her and hear her story without judging her or pitying her or trying to fix her. Her name was Andrea. She was 43. She'd been married for 16 years. Her husband had left her 2 months earlier for a woman from his office. He'd told her on a Tuesday night after dinner, just stood up from the table, put his plate in the sink, and said he was leaving, like he was announcing he was going to the store. She said the worst part wasn't the words. It was the relief on his face when he said them, like he'd been holding his breath for months and finally exhaled. She told me she'd known something was wrong for over a year. She used that word, known. She said she'd felt it in her body, in her sleep, in the way the air in their house changed when he was home. She said she'd started waking up at 3 in the morning with her heart racing for no reason. She said she'd find herself checking his phone, then putting it down before she looked, because she was afraid of what she'd find. She said she'd Google things like signs your husband is having an affair, and then clear her search history and feel ashamed. She knew. Her energy was screaming at her for over a year, and she spent that entire year fighting it, arguing with it, telling it to be quiet, telling herself she was paranoid, insecure, overthinking, being crazy. She chose her rational mind over her intuition. She chose the version of reality she wanted over the version her body was showing her. And by the time the truth came out, she was so exhausted from the fight that she barely had the energy to be angry. She was just empty. I'm telling you this story for a reason, and the reason isn't about Andrea or her husband or what I saw in a coffee shop 4 years ago. The reason is about you. Because I know that some of you watching this right now are doing exactly what Andrea did. You're feeling something in your gut, in your chest, in your sleep, in the way your body tenses when a certain person walks into the room. You're feeling it and you're fighting it. You're telling yourself it's nothing. You're telling yourself you're being dramatic. You're telling yourself that if you just try harder, love harder, smile harder, everything will be fine. You're Googling things at 2 in the morning and clearing your search history. You're lying next to someone in bed and feeling more alone than you've ever felt in your life. Your energy is trying to tell you something. It's been trying for a while. Maybe weeks, maybe months, maybe years. And you keep turning the volume down because the truth is too loud and too painful, and you're not ready for what comes after you admit it. I understand that. I'm not judging you. I've sat with thousands of women in that exact position, and I've never once judged a single one of them. It takes unbelievable courage to listen to what your body is telling you when your heart is begging you to ignore it. It takes a kind of bravery that most people will never understand. But I need you to hear me. Your intuition is the most honest thing about you. It doesn't exaggerate. It doesn't dramatize. It doesn't make things up to hurt you. It shows you what's real. And when you argue with it, when you push it down, when you tell it to shut up because the truth is inconvenient, you're not protecting yourself. You're delaying the inevitable and making it worse. You're giving the pain more time to build, more time to dig in, more time to become the kind of devastation that takes years to recover from instead of months. I want to tell you what I wish I'd told Andrea that first Saturday in the coffee shop. What I would have said if I could have walked up to a stranger and been honest without sounding insane. I would have said this: the thing you're feeling is real. I know you're scared of it. I know you don't want it to be true. I know that if it's true, then everything changes, and you're not ready for everything to change. But it's real. And the longer you pretend it isn't, the more of yourself you lose in the pretending. You don't have to act on it today. You don't have to blow up your life this afternoon. You don't have to confront anyone or leave anyone or make any decision right now. But you have to stop lying to yourself. You have to stop telling yourself you don't feel what you feel, because that lie is costing you more than the truth ever will. The truth might break your heart, but the lie is breaking your spirit. And a broken heart heals. A broken spirit takes much, much longer. Andrea and I still talk sometimes. Not often. A few times a year. She's doing better now. She moved to Santa Fe. She started painting, something she'd wanted to do since she was a teenager, but her husband had always called it a waste of time. She's not the same woman I saw in that coffee shop. She's quieter, more careful with herself, more careful with who she lets in. But there's a steadiness in her energy now that wasn't there before. The kind of steadiness that only comes from surviving something you were sure would destroy you, and discovering that it didn't. She told me once that the worst part of her divorce wasn't losing her husband. It was realizing how long she'd known and how much time she'd wasted pretending she didn't. She said if she could go back and talk to herself a year before he left, she wouldn't tell herself to leave. She'd just tell herself to stop pretending, stop performing, stop smiling when you don't feel like smiling, stop trying to hold together something that's already broken. She said the pretending was worse than the leaving, and I believe her, because I've heard that exact sentence from hundreds of women over 20 years, and every single one of them meant it. Here's what I know after 20 years and 8,000 readings. The future isn't set in stone. I don't believe that. I believe in free will, and I believe people can change. And I believe that the worst outcomes are not inevitable. But I also know that energy doesn't lie. And when I sit across from someone and I feel the shape of what's coming, I'm almost never wrong. Not because I'm special, not because I have some power that you don't have, because the information is already there. It's already written in the energy between two people. It's already living in the tension of the room, in the half-second delay before someone says, "I love you," in the way someone's hand feels different when it touches you. The information is always there. I just know how to read it, and so do you. That's the part most people don't want to accept. You don't need me. You don't need a psychic. You don't need a tarot reading or a crystal or someone to sit across from you and tell you what your gut has been screaming at you for months. You already know. You've always known. You just need permission to believe yourself. So here's your permission. Whatever you're feeling right now, about whoever you're feeling it about, whether it's your partner or your ex or your friend or your job or your whole life, the feeling is real. Trust it. It's not paranoia. It's not anxiety. It's not you being difficult or dramatic or too much. It's your energy telling you the truth. And your energy has never once been wrong. I'm Celine. Your energy doesn't lie, and neither do I.